So this is the third linear actuator I've hooked into this chassis. This is a different model from the first two. It's rated for more weight. The other ones were rated for 33 pounds. This one's rated for 100. It's also not a high-speed actuator. Its design is different and it's not prone to some of the mechanical failures the other two models had built into their design. The problem with this, and I didn't find this out until after I installed it, is it's 3/16 of an inch too high for the metal part of this chassis to pass over. It was actually too high for this wooden caddy, but I changed out the casters and jacked its ass up a little bit to where it'll pass over. So now it doesn't fit as well here as it did, but it still works. Problem is, that metal part I can't raise up without changing basically everything. So the moral of the story is that the chassis doesn't come back as far. Once the metal part gets right there to that cable, to that raised part there, I have to manually stop it, because otherwise I'll end up scalping and shearing everything off and destroying the actuator, which nobody wants. The real pisser is after I changed this out, I got a pretty good idea that it wasn't a mechanical failure of the other actuators. I think the problem is with the way this remote switch works. See, these actuators have what they call limiter switches. So when the actuator goes all the way back or all the way in, or all the way out rather, it automatically stops working so that the gears and the mechanical components don't keep grinding away and tearing up the actuator when it can't move anymore. Problem is, this thing kept sending 12 volts of power to it even though it wasn't working anymore. And I think it must have burnt something out in the other two actuators. That being the case, I would like to change this out with one of the original designs, but I'll worry about that later. For now, it works. The problem is, I need to make sure I remember to manually turn the power off with the remote, which we have here, up and down. Eventually I'll have this wired in with a rocker switch and it won't be a problem, but for now, if I press this thing and make it go up, when it's finished I need to make sure I've remembered to turn it off. I don't have to remember when I send the chassis back because I have to manually deactivate it before it hits the actuator. So it's low tech, but I have a little mark right there on the rail, and when that foot there gets near that mark, I manually kill the actuator with the remote to keep from it destroying itself. So really all I need is a reminder when it goes up. See, when it goes back, right about there, I have to manually turn it off. You can't see it because the chassis is in the way, but that metal part's getting ready to scalp the actuator. It's right up on top of it. It gives me plenty of room still, to get in and out. No problems there. The problem is when I send this thing back, it fully extends to get up against the chair, at which point it's in position and I'm ready to play the game or whatever I'm going to do, and I could very easily forget to hit the up button again to turn the power off. So that's where this thing comes in. It turns out this remote controller has two outlets to where you could potentially run two actuators at once. You can't run them independently. Either they're both on or they're both off. Which means if there's power coming down this wire to the actuator, there's now also power coming down the wire to this light. So when I kick this thing on and tell it to close up, I now get a bright green flashy light to remind me that there's still power going to that actuator. Now there isn't. It doesn't work on the way back. I think probably because the light's not wired. I think the way the actuator works is it just reverses the flow of electricity. The ground becomes the hot and the hot becomes the ground, I think is how it works. But that light's not rigged to take power the back way. It only takes it forward. But again, it's really not a problem because I have to manually stop it when it goes back. I really only have to remember when it goes forward. So for all intents and purposes, this is finished. I still have some upgrades to do to the monitor. I still have some other accessories around that I want to build in. I want to put the platform for my VR headset, earphones, and whatnot. It's just hanging out there on a mannequin head right now, but I want to put a thing on the wall to where a doll will raise up and down out of the way. I might even get fancy, put a miniature fridge right here, and put it on an actuator so that it comes in and out. When I don't want it, it's up against the wall. When I want a beer, I hit a button and it comes out to where I can reach it and get a beer out of the fridge. But all that's later. I also still want to do a custom control panel to put all these different things on to where I can control all the peripherals, all the monitors. I want to put that key switch in with a different power button. I want to mount some fans, a couple places to help me keep things cool. Mount those to power. I even want to rig it so that these VR sensors are controlled by the control panel, because I need this sensor and this sensor on when I'm doing seated VR, and I need this sensor and this sensor on when I'm doing room scale VR. And I can't have them all on at once because it all runs off Bluetooth, and even though I'm running two different computers, Steam and the VR client get confused. So I need an easy way to turn these on and off, and I want to rig that to the control panel. The ceiling light is going away. I'm just going to take the whole thing out and just put a high brightness, high lumen shop light up here. But I want to have it rigged to where I can turn that off remotely by the control panel as well. So when I'm ready to get my game on, I can turn these lights off without having to get away from the computer. Again, all of that is later. For now, it works. And I'm not unhooking it again. I'm not modifying it again. I'm leaving it just like it is so I can actually get in and play some games.